Casey Newton, platform editor, alongside early Facebook and Google investor and Elevation Partners co-founder Roger McNamee. Roger, let's start with you. You've been such a critic of Zuckerberg and Facebook. What do you think about Zuckerberg's recommendations for how this liability shield that has protected Facebook for so long could be changed?
So, Julia, I think that Mark is framing this in the best possible way for Facebook. You know, Section 230 is currently constructed, provides a safe harbor, and the reforms that he's making will very much advantage Facebook relative to other players. I think the hearing, in fact, is going to have a subtext that goes way beyond Section 230, because I think the issues we're dealing with here really go to the business model of Facebook, go to the business model of Twitter, of Google. And as a consequence, the discussion of 230, in a sense, is a sideshow. And there'll be a lot of talk about it from the platform companies at this hearing. But I don't think from the perspective of long-term regulation that that's the biggest fish that we're going to be frying here.
Casey, what do you think? Do you agree? And how do you think each of these three CEOs is going to differentiate their defense?
Yeah, I think Roger is right. I think that there is an element of opportunism in the prepared testimony that Zuckerberg has offered here. Sundar Pichai notably taking a very different position. He points rightly, I think, to the fact that Section 230 is sort of the foundation of a lot of the modern web. The internet is much bigger than the three companies testifying today, and it deserves to be protected. So it's not surprising to see Zuckerberg, basically seizing the moment. But it'll be interesting to see how far that goes with Congress today.
Yeah, not surprising. And we've really seen this movie play out a number of times by now. Roger, as you say, if Section 230 is, in a sense, a sideshow, and this whole thing is really a sideshow, do you actually see lawmakers getting to the business model today? Have they ever in the past? Are you expecting anything different this time around?
Well, I think the theater of a hearing like this does not lend itself to getting to deep substance. But there's no question that the relevant committee, which is to say the Energy and Commerce Committee of the House of Representatives, is absolutely digging into the deeper issues. There was a report this week from the global watchdog of Voz, which pointed out that Facebook had the power all year long to get rid of disinformation. There were 10 billion views of disinformation. It could have stopped had it chosen to. 32 million followers of groups that were espousing violence. And in fact, as recently as last Friday, still 118 pages with 27 million followers that were promoting insurrection against our government. And Facebook has the ability to turn this stuff off, but it is not in the interest of its business model to do so. And as a consequence, this issue of business model, I think, is going to be a subcurrent under all of it. And I think, as I said earlier, Mark is very smart to position himself relative to 230 because it sounds like he's being cooperative, but it doesn't actually get to the core issue here. And I think Sundar Pichai's position, as Casey said, is, in a sense, that's the industry standard position, but it serves the status quo in a way that I think is, at the moment at least, harming public health because of disinformation about COVID, and it's clearly harming democracy.
Interesting. Casey, I'd like to ask you to respond to that and also tell us which company you think is going to face the most fire today in this hearing.
Well, on that point, it may be Jack Dorsey. I found his prepared testimony to be somewhat muddled and largely avoiding some of the hardest questions here. He talks about, decentralizing Twitter, maybe putting it on the blockchain. Like, this is nothing that Congress really wants to hear. But, I do think I differ slightly from Roger on what the core issue here is, because while I do think misinformation is a problem, let's talk about who's spreading it. 7 Republican Congress members who are going to be quizzing the CEOs today tweeted the Stop the Steal hashtag promoting the lie that the election had been stolen. So it's very difficult for any tech platform to get misinformation under control when the misinformation is literally coming from inside the House.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.